Hey guys, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about movies that have amazing soundtracks. So I have them in this little container here. I'm going to pull them out one by one and talk about them. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, our first one is Grease. Okay, classic movie. I used to watch this a lot when I went over to my dad's house, like on the weekends. We have Danny Zuko and Sandy. They meet on one hot summer and then they decide to continue dating when they find out that they go to the same high school. But along the way, she grows, he grows, they have their own friends and they come together. And I really like the soundtrack because I feel like it's really fun. And I feel like as the movie progresses, the songs kind of match the vibe of the movie. Like in the beginning, it's very youthful and fun and very lighthearted, but along the way I feel like the songs inject a lot of like the life lessons that they learn along the way, and a lot as the movie goes on I feel like the coming of age story really reflects in the music as well. So that is the first one. Let's go ahead and get to the next one. Okay, 8 Mile. So I could probably do a video just on this movie alone, but it's such a good soundtrack. So we have B Rabbit. He lives in Detroit and he's at a very dead-end job and he wants to become a rapper. He wants to express himself and bring his music to the world. And he has a friend who's pushing him along, pushing him to go to these underground clubs to do rap battles. Along the way, B Rabbit finds his voice literally when he's on stage and trying not to choke, but he also really gets into his music writing and becomes the person that he wants to be. So I really like the soundtrack because I feel like as I'm listening to the songs, I hear Detroit as well. Like I've never been to Detroit, but whenever I hear the music, I picture Detroit as a character just as much as B Rabbit is, and I can like hear the train, I can hear the bus, I can like hear the city sounds, and I feel like it's really reflective of his lyricism. I feel like he's a really good lyricist, and I just feel like the songs really reflect how he is in the moment. I feel like he's really good at bringing people to the present, how his mind is as it goes on. I feel like I'm just along for the ride with him, and I feel like I'm growing along with him as I'm listening to the lyrics. And yeah, I just really love this movie altogether. Okay, next we have Begin Again. Now this is a movie that I don't hear people talk about a whole lot, but it has a really kind of mixed match cast, I would say. We have CeeLo Green, Keira Knightley, Adam Levine, and Mark Ruffalo. So Keira Knightley's character is with Adam Levine. They're in a romantic relationship and they break up in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And then she's like, you know what, I'm actually a good singer, I'm a good writer. And so she decides to start her own music career. And she meets Mark Ruffalo, who's also down on his luck. He's a music producer, and they come together in like a really beautiful platonic way. They really lean on each other and they bring each other through this really difficult time, both with their lives. And I like this soundtrack a lot because it also shows a lot of the music production behind the scenes that I don't really know a lot about. So like throughout the film, they shoot in different parts of New York, so different boroughs, and it shows like them getting the group together, how they're mixing. I feel like the music's emotions really bring out the movie all together. Like there's really happy times, there's really sad times. I feel like the music lyrics really reflect that, and it reminds me of like coming back to a time when you're trying to find yourself. I watch this movie a lot when I'm trying to return to myself and figure out who I am, and then I can sort of begin again from there. But yeah, it's a really good soundtrack. It's really good to listen to if you're just like having dinner with someone, or if you're just like hanging out by yourself. I feel like it's a really good emotional film. Okay, next we have a Goofy movie. So I really love the soundtrack because we have Tevin Campbell, who was really big in the 90s. He did some cameos on TV shows like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I feel like the soundtrack for this movie is really visual. Like when I hear the songs, I picture like the pizza and the cheese stringing from it. I picture the car breaking down, and when Goofy's son is like on the stage swinging back and forth on that little contraption thing. Anyway, sorry. So Goofy movie is about Goofy, who's a really good dad, and he's trying to spend one last summer with his son before his son goes off and like gets his own life and hangs out with his own friends. And so it's like a last hurrah for them. And so they're really experiencing each other as not only father and son, but also as individuals, and how they sort of came together and how they are growing together as a family. And it's just like it's really fun, but it's also really like emotional, and it has its moments as well, which is just really reflected well in the music, I think. Next we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Okay, so I really love the soundtrack because I think about my nephew. I watched it with him in theaters, and I kind of like saw the movie through his eyes in a way, like him seeing Miles on screen. I just like feel like that was like a really cool moment for him. And when we left the theater, he kept playing Sunflower a lot. So like the moments that I have with those that I love, I just like really get more fuzzy feelings. And so when I think of this movie, I think of my nephew more than the actual movie itself. But I feel like that even that is like a really beautiful thing to remember about the soundtrack as well. So that's that one. And next we have Drumline. Okay, such a good soundtrack. So this is about a young man named Devin. He's played by Nick Cannon. We also have Megan Good in the film. And so Devin is he's a really talented drum player, but he's kind of an a-hole in a lot of ways. He has his ego in mind, and he finds it difficult to get along with people in the band. So the movie is a lot about him fostering his talent and learning, but also how to play along with the band and how to get along with others in the community. I really love this soundtrack because even like listening to the music, I don't know a whole lot about music, but it just sounds really complex, and like the notes and the pace at which they're going just sounds really difficult. And you're doing that, but you're also like on the field, you're doing the movements with the band, you're thinking about the dancers, you're thinking about the color guard, and sometimes they have like musical acts come out onto the field too. So there's like a lot of moving pieces, and when I think of the soundtrack, I'm just like in awe of the talent of these people. And it takes place in Atlanta, so there's also like the South culture involved, and it's just like it's a very multi-layered film, which I think also reflects in the music as well. And they bring in a lot of old school, they bring in new school, so it's like a very fun ride, and the music just takes you along for it and makes it much more emotive and expressive as well. Okay, we have a newer film. We have Monkey Man. So this stars Dev Patel, love him. It's about a gentleman. He doesn't have a name. I don't remember. Yeah, he doesn't have a name in the film, but he grew up in India, and there's this police chief who unfortunately like did something wrong to his family. Like he went through a lot of trauma, and so he starts off in his life doing underground boxing, and he throws the fights in order to make money. But then he decides to seek revenge on the person who ruined his family's life, and so he starts from the bottom of like this restaurant, and then he moves his way up to the upper echelon so that he can get closer to the police chief and enact his revenge. And I really love this soundtrack because as soon as it ended, I told my sister, I was like, oh my god, I love the music in there, because I feel like the music like propelled me along the storyline really well. Like I remember the music as it was bringing us through the alleyways of the city, and when he first got his job, like the sort of seedy side of town, like I just feel like the music was very eclectic, and it was a good mix of different types of music. And I feel like the music like really propelled us through the different scenes, and it took us on like a really crazy action ride, but also there were moments when it was really dark, and the music just really put me more in the moment and put me more in the movie, and it made me focus a lot more on what was happening on screen and the conversations that were happening, even like the food that was eaten. Like I just remember it so visually because of the music in the background that was happening. And yeah, it's really good. The movie is really good in general too, so you should definitely like check it out if you haven't yet. Okay, next we have Drive. So this stars Ryan Gosling, and he is a Hollywood stuntman. He also drives on the side for criminals, and he falls in love with his next door neighbor, and they start this sort of romantic thing. And then the next door neighbor and her son get involved in his work, and so he has to protect not only himself, but he has to protect them and get himself out of this really crazy job that he has. But I love the soundtrack because I listened to a lot in college and I had to focus on something. Like it's very ampy and it's very actiony in a lot of ways, but also I feel like when I listen to it, I'm hyper focused on what I'm doing. So it's really good to listen to if you're studying or if you're cleaning your room. It's just really good to have that on in the background. You can do what you need to do, and then as soon as the soundtrack is over, you can move on to whatever else you need to do. Yeah, it's a really good hyper focused album to listen to, I feel like. Okay, we have Bring It On. Now I know this is like a typical teen movie, but I feel like the writing is really good for one, but also the music in here I feel like is really diverse. And we have Black, which is a R&B all black female group, and they were also acting in the film too, so love that for them. But this stars Torrance, and she is a new head cheerleader of her group in California. She inherited this team from a previous head cheerleader named Big Red. Big Red stole their choreography and their movements from an all-black team in the middle of LA, so that is problematic in and of itself. But so she inherits this team and she has to build the choreography, she has to find new music, she has to find new people to come and join, so she has a lot to do at once. And I really love the music in here because at the end, when they're doing like their final competition in Florida, the music in there is very eclectic. They have swing, they have pop, they have rock music, but that's not just like in that section. I feel like the whole movie is really good at bringing different genres of music in. And again, when I think of the music in here, I think about like a really happy time when everything's like really youthful, everyone's just having fun. But also I feel like this movie has a lot of life lessons that a lot of them can learn from, and I think about that a lot when I think about the music. And when this movie came out, it was like a really happy time in my life, and I feel like this is like the culmination of really good media when I was really young. So when I think about the soundtrack, I just think about that like nice sliver of time in my childhood. Oh my gosh, we have one last one. Okay, yeah, Step Up 2. So this is a sequel to the original with Channing Tatum, and he also makes a cameo in the second film, which is really nice. But this stars a woman. She is a high schooler, and she's kind of a misfit. She gets into a lot of trouble, and so her aunt, as a last-ditch effort, enrolls her into this artistic school where there's like musicians and actors and dancers. And so she starts her own underground group where they can compete in this competition called The Streets. So the soundtrack is really good. We have T-Pain, we have Swizz Beatz, we have Jamie Scott, and I listen to this a lot when I'm in the car. I want to hype myself up before going to the gym, which I'll be going there today. But it's really fun. I feel like it's really vibey, and it's really like youthful in a lot of ways, and it just gets me in a really good mood because it reminds me of like people following their dreams, going for what they want, and also like being surrounded by really great friends. That's not really like an experience that I had in high school. So when I think about this movie, I kind of vicariously live through these people, and yeah, it's just really fun. Every time I listen to this album, it puts a smile on my face. So that is our entire list. But thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.